The good old clap, take one.
That's right.
How many of you knew what you wanted to be when you were 7 years old? I did. I wanted to be world champion.
Hey, is there honesty involved in this podcast? Can we be honest?
You can shut your fucking lips.
And then I'll just say, put them up, what? Let's go.
He's like, you look too pretty on the wave. Get ugly.
We can talk about DMT if you want.
I thought we were boxing.
All right, we have South Africa's Matt McGillivray, CT sophomore sensation. I don't know actually if you guys have freshman, sophomore, junior, senior in South Africa. It's probably like year 10 sensation. Either way, opening round one heat at the Corona Open J-Bay, potentially tomorrow, potentially in just a few hours. What are you doing up so late talking to us?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was excited to have the opportunity to chat to you, Dave. And hello, everyone who's listening. Thanks for tuning in. But yeah, back home in Jeffreys Bay, the swell slowly picked up throughout the day. And I think tomorrow is definitely a run day. I saw in the group chat, though, they are thinking of starting with women. So I've got that on my side. But I'm round one, heat one with the guys.
I like it. Well, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you for coming on to the lineup. But, you know, what has been going on for you? How long have you been home, which is where you're from, in Jeffreys Bay? Have there been waves to surf? And what goes into your preparation for a hometown CT event compared to other events, if there is a difference?
I've been home for the last 10 days since Brazil. I came straight home. It was a 2-day journey to get here. It's pretty far away from everywhere. But we've had some fun waves here. Nothing amazing yet. Super Tubes has had a quiet month. And this contest seems to be perfectly positioned this month with a nice swell coming in. We have a good forecast for the event for the next 3 days. But it's been kind of hard to get ready and test out boards because Super Tubes hasn't been breaking up until now, up until this afternoon pretty much. It's been like 2 to 3 feet at the biggest. But my dad actually recently got a jet ski. And so we've been taking that to some of the beach breaks around here, which pick up a little bit more swell. And you can use the jet ski to do step-offs and to really get your wave count up. And it's a lot of fun. So it's going to be good being home now in the off-season, using the jet ski for training purposes. And I think it's opened up a few more spots now that I can go visit just in this area. Some beach breaks, which are pretty sharky. So you want to be on the ski. And if you fall off a wave, you're like running on water to try and get back on the ski. But we got a few more options of where we can surf now, which is cool.
I like it. Now, you qualified for the championship tour at the end of 2019. 2020 was the off year because of the pandemic. 2021 was a hybrid year. So this will be, you know, the first time as a full-fledged championship tour surfer that you'll get to compete at home. And we've seen in the past, it kind of swings in either direction. For some surfers, they have the advantage of all the experience at their home spot, that they take that into competition, they do very well. For other surfers, they have to kind of balance out the added hometown pressure and everybody expecting them to do well. I mean, notoriously, you know, Jeremy Flores at home in Hossegor for years and years and years struggled before he finally won the event. This will be the first time that you're competing at home, but have you thought about that at all? Have you already kind of experienced I know this wave better than everyone else because I live here, or, you know, I am feeling a little bit of community expectations on my shoulders heading into the event?
I'm definitely feeling the pressure, like having that weight on your shoulders of everyone's expecting you to do well at this wave. And I think even like myself, I'm expecting myself to do really well at this wave. This is the one wave I was hoping to get a big result at. So I have to be careful. And I know going into tomorrow, that's on my mind. And I'm trying to be careful of where my thought process is going. Like personally, I really want to be as present as possible and enjoying and taking in the experience as much as possible and not letting the pressure get to me. I want to have fun and be relaxed so I can do my best surfing. And I was able to surf in the J-Bay Open as a wild card back in 2018. So I got to experience that a little bit and have like the home crowd cheering me on. And I thought I was going to be super nervous for that, but then when I was out in the water in the lineup, it felt like I was free surfing, and I was at Super Tubes, which is usually pretty crowded, and like you're only with one other guy or two other guys in a heat, so you kind of get lost in the experience of surfing one of your favorite waves with only one or two other guys out, and you have priority for the next set wave. So that dynamic kind of takes your mind off the pressure, and you start to have fun and just really enjoy yourself out there.
I like it. So we are, as we were talking about, potentially hours away from the start of the Corona Open J-Bay. And as you mentioned, the forecast is getting a lot of attention this year. As one of only two Springboks on the championship tour alongside Jordy Smith, and you actually grew up there, what is your personal read on the kind of waves we're going to be getting for this year's event?
I mean, the forecast has been looking amazing from 2 weeks out. Everyone was watching the swell come in. But you have to be careful here in South Africa because often Wind Guru puts this little cherry at the end of the forecast. So you keep looking and then it just keeps like disappearing almost, or things change pretty quickly here. So it's not very reliable unless it's 3 days out, and then you can kind of tell what's going to happen. And today, everyone thought the waves were going to be a little bit bigger for the first day of the waiting period. But J-Bay likes that south swell direction. If it's too west, then it misses the bay. And I think that was the case with today. It was too west, so it didn't quite get in. But you could see by this evening, as it was getting dark, the swell jacked up from 3 feet to like there are a couple 5 foot sets. And then I also got a report from people in Cape Town saying that it's already 10 foot that side. So the swell's on the way, and I think tomorrow is going to be a really fun first day of competition. And then Thursday is the actual big day, and with the strong offshore winds, which is like the iconic Jeffreys Bay. It's going to be howling winds, freezing cold, hopefully some barrels, and like the classic point break. And then Friday morning is going to be good again. We might have some onshore wind coming in mid-morning or towards lunchtime. So I mean, with the reduced format, they can finish by Friday morning anyway, so it doesn't really matter. They only need 2.5, 3 days. So it's going to be a pretty quick event.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. We say that now. We'll find out when this drops in a week here how quick it actually was. But
I say this all touching a wood table.
Yes, I'm only touching wood at the moment. So. But we were talking about you growing up there and having a familiarity with the wave. And if you look at the championship tour, certainly over the course of its history, but particularly over the last 2 decades, and I bring that window up because that's where I've been on it, so I can kind of speak to it with more authority than what happened before then. But we kind of went from a space where there were these venue specialists, there were pipe specialists, there was, the infamous Jeffreys Bay nemesis to Andy Irons, Sean Holmes as a specialist. The venues on the CT, while the world's best surfers would come there, they would often come up against locals who were really, really dangerous. And then flash forward to maybe 10 years ago, the championship tour surfers got so good at virtually every stop on tour that the specialists kind of stopped being an issue for them in a way. Not to say that they're not challenging, but I think the quality of CT surfers got so good, and it's kind of continued through this day. If you were to look at the venues that you've had on tours so far, you've got Pipe, Sunset Beach, Super Tubos, Bells Beach, Margaret River, Garajagan, Punta Roca, Saquarema, and now we're here in Jeffreys Bay. It does feel like Jeffreys is still one of those unique kind of waves where having the experiences is still a huge advantage. Would you kind of agree with that based on your experience on tour?
It's hard to say. Like, it's going to be super interesting to see in this event how everyone does and how everyone's looking on the waves. It's such a amazing canvas to work with out at Super Tubes, and I feel like it's not a very difficult wave to surf just because it's such a good wave. I feel like everyone's going to be ripping. It's going to be, hard to say. Like, obviously there's going to be a few standouts, but I feel like everyone's going to be surfing really well out there. And just from the free surfs, what I've been seeing, the level of like that everyone's performing at is already so high.
Makes sense. We talked a little bit about you qualified at the end of 2019. 2020 was an off year. 2021 was a hybrid year. And a topic of conversation that's come up a lot this year, given that we're in the first season of the full flighted redesign with the 3-tier system and the mid-season cut, is that balance between established surfers who've been on the CT for a long time, who had gotten used to that rhythm of I get 10 events, we start at the end of February, early March in Australia, we ease our way in through these venues, and then pipeline is the end of the year, see how it goes, to this season where we basically fired everyone out of a cannon, right, at pipeline in sort of peak winter season at the end of January. And then it's this 5-event sprint to make the mid-season cut. At the press conference for the Corona Open J-Bay, you'd mentioned that J-Bay was your big goal for making the cut, that was the first thing on your mind when you made it. Speak to us a little bit about that and about, I guess, just the stress of the first 5 events and kind of getting to the end of Margaret River for you as a competitor.
It was funny for myself because when the tour started, it was kind of a relief and a second chance for myself because after Mexico in 2021, I had just missed the cutoff by one spot. I'd just fallen off tour. And so I was back in the Challenger Series, and I wasn't sure if I was going to get chances in 2022 to surf on the Championship Tour. And I only found out in December after Haleiwa finished that I was going to be awarded the injury replacement, the first alternate spot for 2022. And so everything happened really quickly for me. From going from Haleiwa, I actually stayed in Hawaii right the way until New Year's. Got to go home for 2 weeks and then came back to Hawaii for pipeline. And that's when the 2022 season kicked off. And I went from like wondering what I was going to get up to in 2022 to suddenly being like, okay, I've got another shot at this tour and I have another chance to realize my dream and to make this happen. So I was super motivated. I think being through something tough like just losing out on your dream in 2021 really motivated me in 2022 to make it happen. And it ended up being a roller coaster for me because I was super confident with how I was going to perform in Hawaii. I thought I was going to get off to a great start and kind of take the pressure off myself. And then I only had one 9th place finish at Sunset Beach, so I wasn't safe by any regard. And then Portugal, I got a 33rd, and I was like, oh, that's not how you want to begin this year. There's 2 more events left before the cut, and that was on my mind. It was on everyone's mind. The cut's coming up, and we've got to try to take the pressure off because it's getting more and more difficult to surf. And then Bowles Beach happened, and I was like, this is my event. It's a right-hand point break. I'm from J-Bay. Bowles has got to be similar. And then I ended up losing out, or I surfed my round 1 heat at Bowles, and it was really difficult conditions. And then my round 2 heat in the elimination round, I was at Winky Pop, and it was kind of onshore and inconsistent. And I ended up losing and getting another 33rd. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, I've had this another shot to be on the tour and I've blown it. I'm sitting at 29th in the ratings now. I've got one more event and it's a long shot now for me to make it. And so for Margie's, I almost took the pressure off myself, and I was content with, I came to accept the fact that if I had to go back in the Challenger Series and compete on the QS again, I'd be okay with it. However my year panned out, if I was going to carry on to J-Bay, obviously that was going to be a dream come true. But if I had to go back in the Challenger Series and get my grind on again, at least I'd be traveling with a cool group of my friends, and we'd be traveling. We'd be going to cool places, surfing, and it's not the end of the world. And then Margie's happened, and somehow everything worked out in my favor. And I found the momentum to make heats again and to make the smart decisions, to like be on the better waves and just make better decisions in my heats, and ended up making it above that cut line somehow. And then all I had in my mind was, yes, I get to surf JB now. This is truly a dream come true.
It's interesting hearing you talk about that, because so many surfers kind of have a similar trajectory when they're in a bit of a slump and then they find their way out. You know, Kelly, I think, had a film or a book or something, Letting Go, about effectively about the same thing, where it's like you have to strike that balance between all these pressures and mid-season cuts and results and all this. It's not helping me surf better, you know? So I have to kind of let go of that stuff. And as you pointed out, like, feel content with the idea that you'd be on the Challenger Series with your friends and it's not the end of the world, but not sort of so laid back and chill that you're not performing, right? So you kind of have to find that like middle lane, which it sounds like you did in Margaret River, which it was an awesome run to see you perform there. And then you had a great run after that as well, you know, 5th in G-Land and then back-to-back 9ths in El Salvador and Rio. It does feel like the pressure release of making the mid-season cut, ensuring your qualification for the start of 2023 has gone a long way. And in other news, you've recently signed with Channel Islands Surfboards. You're working with them on the equipment side. You know, talk to us about how that came to be and what kind of boards you've been working on over the last few events.
Yeah, for sure. Signing with Channel Islands Surfboards, that happened. I started testing out a few boards when I was in Australia at Bells Beach and Margaret River. And for the past year, I've kind of been experimenting with boards, getting a few DHDs, quite a few different Hawaiian shapers, Tokoros, Pangs, and kind of being a bit of a board whore. But yeah, I guess I get so excited about like looking at different shapes and like I just wanted to see what's out there. And then with the Channel Islands and deciding to stick with one shaper now, well, first of all, I got a really good batch of CIs, and I was like, okay, like there's something here. And then I was needing consistency with my surfboards, because when you're jumping around and you're trying to prepare for events, it's just, you're never going to be fully prepared if you like. It's just so hard to like be on top of your equipment if you keep using different shapers. And yeah, I found out from Britt that he was going to be keen to work with me, and they got me a batch of boards for Oz, and I really liked the new CI Pro model that they came out with. And yeah, I was kind of amazed that they like were so willing to work with me in the first place. And it just felt like the right decision, like at this point in my career, to stick with one shaper where I can just have that consistency in my boards. And that's going to help me be more prepared for the events in the future. And at least I'll really have that extra confidence in my equipment.
It's interesting. Sean Thompson was on the podcast for last week's episode. He went real deep on this because he was talking about his own career. And he said, look, he goes, you're always going to try a bunch of shapers. But he was saying, you know, when Kelly was at Channel Islands, or Felipe at Sharp Eye, or Carissa at Mayhem, or Steph at DH, he goes, the surfers who are able to lock into a rhythm with a singular shaper, as you pointed out, like you're able to get the confidence to perform every single time, as opposed to, I mean, we see a lot of surfers on tour, they will try a bunch of different boards, but I have heard and observed, and even kind of listening to you talk a little bit, you kind of get paralyzed by too many options sometimes, where you're like, I don't know if it's that one or it's this one. I've got too many options. So it sounds like you've hit a nice groove for the time being with Channel Islands.
You have so many variables in the sport of surfing already, so you want to be able to take one of those variables out and just have something consistent there for you to rely on. And that's where the Channel Islands surfboards is making a big difference for me. The boards are reliable. I know they're going to go good.
Looking at the forecast for J-Bay, you mentioned Thursday is the big day. In your heats on that day, what would you imagine is the biggest board you'd take out?
For J-Bay, it's funny. You don't actually need big step-ups. I might only ride a one-inch step-up. I'm usually on a 6.0. I might be on a 6.1. The biggest board I have at my house with me is a 6.2. So I've got the option of the 6.2 if it's macking, but I'll probably be on a 6.1, and the waves don't require that much of a step up out there. So we'll have to see how big it gets. Hopefully we're getting a few barrels down the point, but I'll probably be on one of my 6.1s, just 1 inch step up.
Love it. We're going to take a quick break to get a word in from our sponsor, and we'll be right back. So in the opening segment, we talked about how you grew up in Jeffreys Bay, but were you born there? What was it like? Where were you born? What was your family situation like? Mom, dad, what did they do? Brothers, sisters? And when did you kind of settle in the Jeffreys Bay area?
So I'm from a family of 4. I've got 2 older brothers and a younger sister, and we grew up in Port Elizabeth. My dad's a civil engineer. My mom's stayed at home and looked after the family. But I used to live like 15 minutes away from the beach in PE, and the waves are not very consistent there because it's a big bay. So it's always half the size of Jeffreys Bay. So we'd have to drive out to Jeffreys Bay on the weekends to kind of get surf. And it was about, I'm trying to remember when, 2012. 2012 is when my family decided to move out to Jeffreys Bay. We were just making so many trips out there for surfing already. My parents were like, why don't we have a complete lifestyle change and just make the move? And so I'm really grateful to my parents for making that commitment, selling the house in Port Elizabeth and moving us out here. And it's been nice.
And is that the house you're in right now? Same house?
It's a different house. We moved once more. We were like a couple blocks away down the point, and now we're up on the top of the point, and we actually have a sea view, which is really nice. So you can pick and choose your surfs, see when the crowd thins out, and then head out there. But I'm really lucky to grow up in this area. Yeah,
and so I'm interested too, because I'd imagine I've been there. I've been fortunate enough to be there a few times. It's such a beautiful part of the world, beautiful people. I'd imagine that the infrastructure and the schools and the opportunities, there's probably more of them in Port Elizabeth than in Jeffreys Bay, which is sort of a smaller country town. When you guys made the move, were you then going to school in the Jeffreys Bay area? Were you playing other sports in the Jeffreys Bay area, or were you still having to commute a bit for that?
I was at a public school in Port Elizabeth, and I was in grade 9 when we moved out to Jeffreys Bay. And both myself and my second oldest brother, Jono, he was in matric at the time, which is grade 12. We started homeschooling just because there weren't any schools we wanted to be at out here in Jeffreys Bay. It's a very small town, so you don't have many options, like you were saying. So I homeschooled from grade 9 to 12, and my brother finished his last year of school homeschooling, which was interesting. We needed some help from my mom and my dad. My dad's good at the physics and the maths because he's an engineer, so he could help out there. But otherwise, we had tutors and stuff in the town who were helping us out.
That makes sense. And I mean, it sounds like your family loves that area. They love surfing. But for you in particular, and I guess your professional aspirations, do you remember a time? I guess I always love asking this question. Like, was there a time for you where you realized, like, this, I'm good at this, this could be my job? Or was it something that was more gradual for you, and it was just always kind of felt like you were on that path?
It's hard to say. I started surfing kind of late for nowadays standards. My brothers kind of got into surfing. They had some secondhand surfboards, and I was like maybe 7 or 8, and I tried to surf on their boards once or twice. But then my family got big into surf lifesaving and the junior lifeguards, being a nipper, running around the beach in a Speedo and a skull cap. And we were doing that in Port Elizabeth, and we were doing competitions, and we were pretty involved. And then when I was about 10 years old, I started surfing, properly, and started doing nippers less, and started just trying to surf at every possible opportunity. And I wasn't that great to start off with, to be honest. I started doing competitions, and I could never make it past the quarterfinals or semifinals. And it took me 2 or 3 years to start like getting medals in the juniors and the under 14s and then the under 16s and the junior events around South Africa. But I really enjoyed it, and I started to realize that you can make a career from surfing, and I thought, like, what better way to earn a living than to surf? And so that kind of became a dream from a young age. Like going through high school, I was like, I really want to become a surfer one day because I want to be able to travel and surf. I didn't realize how like difficult it was going to be at the time, but I guess here we are now at the JBA Open.
I was going to say, you made it. Everyone listening to this podcast is going to say, like, couldn't be that hard. He did it. That's incredible.
It's been a long
With
journey.
the sponsorship, oh, I'm sure. With the sponsorship part of professional surfing, you've had the support of Rip Curl for several years now. When did that relationship come into your life, and how, if it has, like, how has it changed from when it started through their support of your qualifying campaign to the championship tour level? Or I'm curious if it's like, I get a better bedroom at the Hawaii house now, or, you know, I my wetsuits arrive a day earlier than they used to, or whatever it is. Like, I'm curious as to how that relationship started and how it's changed, because you're still so young as you've matriculated through the system.
Yeah, so I started off getting sponsored by Rip Curl South Africa when I was 18, and they gave me a small budget to be able to travel to competitions, like whatever I chose, wherever I chose to compete at. And obviously it's in South African rands, getting sponsored by Rip Curl South Africa, so it's very hard to travel off just because our currency is so weak compared to the dollar. But then Rip Curl was always super supportive with helping me at the Hawaii house. So at the end of the season, when I got to Hawaii, they'd let me stay in the pool room and kind of let me hang around everyone and get to know who the main guys were. And I met the boss there in Hawaii, and he told me, hey, this is how it works. If you make the CT, then you get onto the global team. And then Fletcher's going to look after you, and you're going to start earning dollars. And it's going to make things a lot easier for you. And then, yeah, that was kind of in 2018 when I got told that. And then at the end of 2019, I was able to qualify. And then, yeah, Fletcher's like, all right, well, I'm your new boss now. Like, welcome to Rip Curl International. And it makes a huge difference getting to travel using dollars. So obviously my budget went up a lot. And I actually moved to Australia during COVID because, well, I kind of got stuck there because travel stopped, and I was there for the contest. And then COVID happened, but I was in Oz. And that's where Rip Curl's kind of headquarters are. So I think that was good for my relationship with my sponsor, just being in the same country that they're based in. And they definitely, to me, like, they've given me so much support. I don't know, like, I'm not sure where I'm going with this.
No. It's fascinating to hear you talk about, especially that jump from, you know, Rip Curl South Africa to Rip Curl Global. It feels like it was almost like, oh, why didn't you say so before? Because you were told, like, oh, if you qualify for the CT, you know, you get on the global team and that changes your life. And you did it a year later. Like, it's sort of like, it's a little bit of like, oh, is that it? Okay, I can do that. It's rad to see. And I mean, I think that was actually, actually, I'll come back to this point because I think you touched on something really important. And this is something that seems like it's been the case for a long, long time. The quality of surfers in South Africa is so high, like incredible surfers. Obviously, there's a ton of coastline, like world-class waves all over the place. It makes sense that it would develop world-class surfers, but the representation at the championship tour level has probably not been commensurate with how talented the community is in South Africa. My understanding, and you can heat check me on that, is really that financial barrier of it is very expensive to travel the world to get out to earn those points to get to that elite level, and the currency thing becomes a huge issue. Would you say that that's primarily the reason we don't see more South Africans on the championship tour?
It's definitely a big issue for the guys not having the right backing, so that we can travel comfortably. Something Jordy Smith told me when I was in Brazil with him. Now we're staying in the same accommodation, but he was like, "Hey, like I finally figured out what you need to do to make money as a surfer." He said, "You need to earn dollars and spend rands." And he was saying that because he's been living in California for the past 10 years, but he's trying to relocate back to South Africa now. And yeah, that kind of resonated with me. I'm like, yeah, you know what? That makes a lot of sense, because I was living in Australia during COVID, and I was earning dollars, but I was spending dollars as well. And like things get really pricey. But yeah, for the South Africans, if you're stuck on a South African budget, it's really difficult to be able to travel, to be able to go to the different competitions you need to be in. There's extra pressure on you because you don't have the money to be there in the first place. And then, yeah, you just can't be comfortable too when you're traveling. You might be like 4 guys sharing 2 double beds or something. And then also there's the issue that we have a lot of good waves in South Africa. So you have to be pretty motivated to want to travel overseas and spend all this money to surf in competitions, which are usually in subpar waves, where it can be a bit of a grind.
Makes sense. I do hope that, I mean, this was part of the redesign, but I do hope that that's what the new 3-tier system will address to a point where it's, you know, if you are a promising surfer, you can stay regionally and work on getting results on the regional qualifying series. And if you perform well enough, then you'll advance to the International Challenger Series, which is going to be expensive to do, much more than the regional qualifying series. But at least you would have built that seed up a little bit. And at least your competitive chops to the point where it's like, well, if I can go internationally and perform across this 8-event series, then I can make it to the championship tour, as opposed to what it was before, which is, yeah, I can compete at home, but I may have to fly to Indonesia or to South America to get into a QS event. That's really, really expensive. But I do like the Jordy Smith thing. It's a bit of Jordynomics there, so he can kind of start teaching us all how to financially plan our lifestyles.
He's a smart businessman, for sure.
He's a smart man. I think most of the world, I know I did in a large way, got introduced to you through kind of 2 primary lenses, and the one of those was the Rip Curl film Postcards with Morgs, where you feature very heavily, and you're kind of the calm, collected straight man to Morgs losing his mind over not being on the A team on the Rip Curl side of things, which is really one of the funnier moments in surf film that I remember. And then again, that relationship with Morgan Sibilic was showcased pretty heavily in the Make or Break season 1 on Apple Television. So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about that relationship with Morgan, and I guess just kind of finding your way through the pandemic season as well as your rookie year on tour.
So I guess, yeah, the first time Morgan and myself started traveling together was in 2019. We did the Europe leg together, myself, Morgan, Chris Affis, and Liam O'Brien. And we had so much fun as a group. We were like the perfect balance of like just the energies, like low energy to high energy, like different ends of the spectrum in our group of guys traveling. And both Morgan and myself, and like we got good results at these events. And then coming down to Hawaii, we were in a good position to qualify. And I ended up getting the job done in Haleiwa, and then Morgan had to get the job done at Sunset Beach, which was the last 10,000. And he ended up making it right the way to the quarterfinals. And then he got an interference on Stuart Kennedy and lost out. And we were like, oh my, he's 1 heat away from qualifying, and he's gone and dropped him on Stu. What has he done? And he came in, and then we're chatting with Kiko Bacalso, our team coach, and he was like, no, it's not over yet. Like, let's just take a breath and see what happens. And it turns out a couple of days later, after the pipe contest finished, Morgan was in the 11th spot, and he was the last guy to qualify for the 2020 championship tour. And so I was like, oh, this is insane. Like, we've been traveling together, and now we've both managed to qualify. And so we're going to try travel together a bit in 2020. And then, of course, COVID happened. So I got stuck there in Australia with him. And it was pretty cool of Rip Curl to like make that little movie. And yeah, I was stoked I was able to be included in it. It was really a masterpiece by Vaughn and Nick Paulette. Those guys are so creative. But yeah, it was a lot of fun just watching that all happen. And then in 2021, I got to travel with Morgan as our first rookie year, using Jay Thompson Bottle as our coach. And yeah, it was a perfect like dynamic with him being kind of crazy, impulsive, and me more like calm and steady in a way. And then Botsy just like managing us both, making sure we kept our focus. And we've grown a close relationship, I guess, and like he's become like a brother to me. And it was awesome supporting him last year as he made it to the final 5, and I stayed on in California with him as he got ready for Trestles, and then like watched him in that event. And then I went on the QS on the Challenger Series. I went to Huntington and then Europe and continued on, and he went back home for the off season. And yeah, so I don't know. It was crazy how now this year everything's been flipped around a bit. But yeah, I wish we were still traveling together now. Like I was chatting to him, he was up in Belito, and like I wanted him to come stay with me at J-Bay during the event. Of course, like yeah, it's just worked out the way it's worked out, and he's had to walk this harder road now, which I think it's going to be really good for him in the long run. Of course, it's really tough, but I know he's going to come back stronger from it because he's got so much experience from last year. He's surfing so well, and he's just waiting for the pieces to fall into place now. But yeah, I miss traveling with him because now I've lost my travel buddy.
Hello, we need to get him back on tour so you can feel whole
100%.
again. And he is one of those guys that I think he surprised everyone. I mean, he actually came on the lineup like right when Postcards from Morgues dropped, and the conversation is basically 60 minutes of him being like, "I can't believe I've qualified," and I'm like, "Yeah, me neither." Like, because and not because he wasn't talented, but just because it's like, wow, you're young and kind of really came out of nowhere, and I think that similarly to what you're talking about earlier about letting go and pushing some of that stress away, I think that served him so well last year, and he surfed so well. And as you said, he made it to the Rip Curl WSL finals, and then I actually feel like he's still surfing maybe better than ever now. And obviously he's still so young, and the results just didn't happen for him in the first half of the season. He's been relegated to the Challenger Series. So I back what you said. I think that experience is going to serve him really well in the long run. I hope we see him back on the CT pretty soon here.
Yeah,
because he's a huge talent.
Sure.
Bringing it back to South Africa for a moment, you growing up in Jeffreys Bay, you know, as it stands in 2022, the most watched, I think this is correct, surfing video on YouTube, if you remove like music videos and stuff like that, is still the 2015 shark attack on Mick Fanning at the finals of our J-Bay event. 32 million views or something, which isn't surprising because it sort of unfolded on broadcast as it would if you were like Spielberg were directing it, basically. You mentioned you got the ski with your dad. You're able to go to these different locations and catch a lot of waves that in spots that are really, really sharky. Have you ever been, or are you scared of surfing at home? And is it on your mind? And have you had any run-ins with sharks when you're over there?
It's funny. I've always felt safe surfing at the points around here in Jeffreys Bay. Maybe it's just because I've spent so much time in the water, it's become like a familiar thing for me. And whenever the water's a bit murky, like I will keep my feet up on my board. I won't just dangle my feet in the water. But I've never like thought too much about sharks here at Jeffreys Bay. When that attack did happen, or the Mick Fanning incident, I don't think
whatever we're calling it.
Yeah, yeah. I think the shark was like swimming past him and wasn't like in my opinion, meaning to attack him. I'm not sure. He got caught up in his leash and freaked out, and then everything went down. But I actually went surfing an hour after that. Like they cleared the water, and then there were about 5 or 6 people who went surfing after the contest was cancelled. And I went out there at Supers, and I was like, the thing with JB is there are sharks around, and whether you can see them or not, they're going to be there in the water. And usually they're just swimming up from the beaches, and they swim past the point, but they don't stay in one spot. They always just pass through. And I've seen this because my brother's done the shark spotting for the event before. My family actually owns the little white airplane with those super long wings that does the shark spotting during the event. And my brother would fly as the pilot. He's not doing it at the moment, but in the past, he would fly as the pilot looking for these sharks. And they would see like 20 or 30 great whites like down at the beach breaks, which are like 20 kilometers from here. And there'd be like a whole lot of juvenile sharks hanging around that zone. And then about once a day, they would spot a great white swimming up the point. And it would like swim. There'd be bunches of surfers at each section, and they would kind of like circle where the shark was and try to wave people out the water, but people couldn't really tell from the aeroplane what was going on. And the shark would kind of swim, not in a straight line. It would swim in wherever there was a group of surfers and kind of like pass people without them realizing, and then back out to sea. And then at the next section, it would kind of swim in slowly, check everyone out, and then swim back out to sea. And at the very last spot in J Bay Kitchen Windows, I think there was even like a guy lying off a surfboard, and the shark actually swam. When my brother was watching it, actually swam right underneath this guy who was just lying off a surfboard, completely oblivious. And it goes to show you that like we have no idea that they're in the lineup with us probably every day. And I don't know. I guess it's a risk we're willing to take, but we're in their home. And I feel like it's a weird one. In certain places in South Africa, like I'm okay to surf with sharks. Like Jeffreys Bay, I'm fine to surf here. I feel safe. But if I'm at somewhere like Plettenberg Bay or like 2 hours up the coastline towards Port Alfred, then I'm like freaked out about sharks again. And I'm like thinking about it a lot. But then when I'm home in a familiar territory, I'm not thinking about it. So that's kind of how it goes with me.
Makes sense. But you're also, we talked about a little bit, sort of you being this awesome foil with Morgan. You're pretty zen, calm kind of guy because, outside of surfing, I'm of the understanding that your other interests include skydiving and base jumping. So tell us a little bit about that, and how did you get into it? How much do you do it, and what do you get out of it?
Yeah, so I started skydiving when I was 17 or 18, but it was always a dream of mine to get my skydiving license. And from watching YouTube videos, I decided base jumping looked like a really good idea. And yeah, anyway, my brothers are also big adrenaline junkies. And so they actually did their skydiving licenses before me. And so I kind of had no choice. My dad's always pushed like the adventurous spirit on our family. So anyway, my brothers started doing their skydiving licenses, and then I started doing mine, got my skydiving license. And I decided that skydiving was actually scary enough, and I wasn't too sure if I was going to start base jumping, because I was like, this is pretty dangerous already, and there's a lot going on, and it's scary but a lot of fun. And then my elder brother Jono was like, he was like, hey, I'm going over to America. I'm going to go to a base jumping school and do a 2-week course. You can come with me if you want, but if you miss your chance, you're never going to do it. And I was like, yeah, okay, I should probably go with him because I'm going to regret it if I don't. And so in 2018, I went to Idaho with my brother, and we did a 2-week base course at this place called the Snake River Base Academy, where we learned how to pack our parachutes and then all the dangers of base jumping, what can go wrong, and just how to do it as safe as possible. And then when I got home from that, my dad actually bought my brother and I parachutes so that we can base jump at the various places around South Africa, because we actually have a few cool objects close by to my house which you can jump off. And yeah, it's kind of a strange hobby to get into. It's like more of a thrill-seeking thing, but it's something I really enjoy, and I'm going to try to pursue more in the off season now. Already when I got home now from Brazil, I was able to go for 2 base jumps at Blowcrans Bridge with Jono, and then I also got to do 2 skydives today, which is pretty fun, since it's been a while since I've skydived, just with all the travel. But yeah, it's something I get a good rush from, and I enjoy the mental challenge of it and dealing with fear and being outside your comfort zone. And yeah, it's challenging but really rewarding at the same time.
I can imagine. Is there, when you finish a skydiver base jump, you have all the anxiety and the prep time and the adrenaline of actually doing it. Is there a period of time at the end of the day after you've done one where you feel like, differently, or you feel like a moment of clarity, or you feel like your body is sort of releasing tension in a way that you I don't know, in a way that I'd imagine is sort of advantageous to just training as an elite athlete as well, as just working out your body's biochemistry that way?
I guess so. You definitely feel a lot of relief when your parachute opens, and when your feet are safely on the ground, you're like, wow, I'm glad to be here. And it can give you a bit of perspective too, because you realize how fragile life is, and you don't want to take each moment for granted. So you got that side of things, and then also you got the pushing yourself out of your comfort zone side of things, where you challenging yourself and you're feeling the fear but trying to do it anyway. And then the discipline side of it as well, where you got to be really focused when you're packing your parachute, and this is the only parachute you have, or especially for base jumping, you're not going to have another chance. So you got to make sure everything's done 100% correctly and that you're confident in what you're doing. And so that's kind of like a meditation almost when you're packing your parachute. And then I think after you jump, that's just like adrenaline, which feels pretty good. And like you question yourself before, you're wondering why you're doing it, and then afterwards you're like, oh, I'd love to, like, we should pack our parachutes and go again as soon as possible.
I like it. Well, we got a couple more topics to get to, as well as some listener questions, but we're going to take one more quick break and we'll be right back. All right. So ideally, based on your forecast prediction from the start of this conversation, by the time this episode airs, the Corona Open J-Bay will have been finished. You will have won your maiden CT event at home. It's going to be really exciting. And then we have Tahiti coming up. What is your experience, if you have any, out at Teahupo'o?
I went to 2 QS 1000s back in 2016 in Tahiti. The one was at Rangiroa and the other at Papua. And after the Papua QS, I was able to go to Chopes for 2 days. And it was 3 to 4 feet, super fun, glassy, nice little barrels, and nothing compared to like what I've seen during the event, or like what I've just witnessed this past month, about a month ago, with everyone scoring at Chopes. So no, I haven't experienced proper Teahupo'o, and I'm not sure what to expect. It looks like I don't know. There's no wave that comes close to it. I've been trying to get some tips from Morgan, because he's done one Red Bull trip to Tahiti already, and he's doing another now before Huntington. So I was asking him about boards, what boards are right, and like, how do you find the wave? What's it like compared to Pipeline? Is it similar to Pipeline at all? And it's just, the wave is such a different animal to anywhere else in the world. So I'm not sure what to expect, but it's going to be a good challenge, and I'm excited. It's going to be hard to get waves in free surfs, but during a heat, it's going to be interesting having priority. Because I'm not sure if you're going to accidentally paddle for a wave and lose priority on purpose. But we'll see what happens.
That's galaxy brain thinking right there. Well, I'm curious though too, since you grew up in Jeffreys Bay, which is inarguably one of the world's best right-hand point breaks, even just developing your backhand surfing in real slabby waves of consequence. You mentioned Pipeline, Teahupo'o as well. When you were developing as a surfer, I know you still are, but when you were younger, how did you go about saying, okay, I really have to go find some lefts?
It was really difficult coming from Jeffreys Bay to find the motivation to say, let's go find some lefts. And the beach breaks we have around here aren't the best. So it actually didn't happen too often. My backhand's been a big weakness over the last couple of years, something that I've only started working on now, like intentionally in the past, since last year when I realized just how much it was disadvantaging me. But I feel like I'm making some progress now. I still have lots of work to do, of course, but it's definitely difficult coming from the land of right-handers down here. So it does take discipline, just sometimes giving up better waves to go surf worse waves just because you need to work on something. But yeah, it will happen more and more, I guess. That's my goal in the off season. Now it's nice to get some time where you can just work on your weaknesses and try to turn them into strengths.
And I'm glad you brought that up too, because you mentioned how, you weren't even sure what was going to happen this year. And then you weren't even sure what was going to happen after the mid-season cut. And it's sort of this, you got to be nimble and adaptable and flexible, to be a professional surfer these days. Your goals now that you're a tour sophomore, now that you've made the qualification for the start of 2023, is it top 10? Is it final 5? And I guess when I'm asking, I mean, I'm sure it's like, yeah, I want to win 10 world titles. But, looking at 2023, what's the goal for 2023? And then where are you going to be in the off season to work on those goals?
So a big goal for this year for me was to finish in the top 10. And that's been a childhood dream since my junior career. I was like, I just want to be in the top 10 on the CT one day. And now I feel like I'm close to achieving that. I still got some work to do. But hopefully I can make that happen this year. And then next year, I really want to keep climbing the ladder and start progressing towards that final 5. So those are my 2 big goals.
And so after Tahiti, potentially after Lower Trestles, where are you going to be in the world to work on these things for 2023?
I am not so sure yet. I guess I'll hopefully have some time off at home where I can just really reset and make sure I'm not burnt out at all from the year. But then I'd love to use the jet ski that we have now to explore the South African coastline and to go score waves around here, because we're still getting waves in September. And yeah, we have so many like quality waves around the country that you don't really need to do a surf trip overseas unless you want to go find somewhere warm. But if you don't mind wearing a wetsuit, like, we've got plenty of options to choose from down here. So I'm going to spend a lot more time in South Africa, I think, in this back end of the year. And then if there's any strike missions, I don't know what's possible. But I am planning to go to Hawaii in December to work on boards with Brit, because we want to get a good step-up model going with CR. And so, I want to be confident on my CR boards in Hawaii coming into Pipe and Sunset next year. So that's what we'll be doing in the off-season in December.
Makes sense. Well, before you go, we did put out a feeler to the folks that follow us on Instagram at the Lineup Pod, and also on Twitter. We appreciate everyone following and writing in. We've whittled it down to 3 questions. First question is from @Johnny_DeCesare, who asks, how many times have you been chased out of the water by sharks?
Yeah. At Johnny, 0 times. And once again, I'm touching wood.
0. I like it. We all are. Second question is from @Aiden_McCall, who asks, in South Africa, do you find it important to give back to Indigenous people? And if so, how?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have a community right next to Jeffreys Bay. It's called Palsrus, which is like informal. It's where like the informal settlement starts. It's hard to explain. In South Africa, we have towns or cities, and then on the side of each town and city, there's like an informal settlement where there's a lot of poverty, and there's now 2 programs here in Jeffreys Bay. We were just at the one a couple of days ago, which Sharon Clark has started up with. It's there's Wave Point Church, and then the other one. Oh, sorry, I've gone blank now. But yeah, they're getting kids to go surfing, and that's the gist of it: getting kids off the street and into the water. And I think, yeah, encouraging that, and like I'm trying to get involved where I can there. And obviously, when I have more time in the off season, I can get more involved. And yeah, I want to try and give back more in surfing. It's a very selfish sport, and you always, I don't know. There are ways to give back as a surfer, and so with these 2 outreach programs in my town, that's like how I want to be able to do that.
Very cool. And the last question is from @Grant_do_prees46, who asks, what has been your craziest base jump?
Grant. My craziest base jump was with my brother in Slunghoek. There's this big cliff. It's just outside Cape Town, about an hour's drive outside Cape Town, and the cliff's about 500 meters high. But it took us 3.5 hours to hike up there. And then my dad had to drive the car all the way around at the bottom. But we were able to free fall for, like, I only free fall for like 5.5 seconds. My brother went for 8 seconds. And then we got to fly our parachutes all the way down this big gorge and land in the field at the bottom and then hike out of there. But that was the most memorable base jump I've done so far. And I want to head back into Cape Town when I get a chance to do a few more base jumps, because it's pretty cool getting to jump off Table Mountain, and it's kind of a mecca for base jumping down that side. And the organization I was trying to think of is the JV Surf Alliance, that's just opened up here in Jeffreys Bay, helping the disadvantaged kids get in the water and helping with other issues also around town.
Wonderful. Well, thanks to everyone who wrote in at the Lineup Pod, and thanks, Matt, for those answers. We're now down to the final segment. This is the lightning round. So these are 10 questions for you to answer as quickly as you can. First question. If you could only have one board setup for the rest of your life, single fin, twin fin, thruster, quad, bonzer, or finless, which would you choose?
I have to go thruster, just because I haven't really experimented with too many others. I ride a twin fin out here at Point in front of my house because it's a flat wave, but you just have so many more options with a thruster setup.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee for me.
Burrito or pizza?
Burrito.
Last book you read?
It's one that Griffin recommended to me when I was staying at his house, and it's a mental book, but it's all about getting in the zone and manifesting things. I forget its name now, but yeah, it's one of those mental books recommended by Griffin Colapinto.
I like that Griffin has a book club. That's excellent news. That's a better answer than what books you read.
Good recommendations. Hit them up.
Okay, next question. Best surf film ever?
A trilogy.
One wave you never have to go back to?
Manly Beach.
If you only get to surf one wave for the rest of your life.
Super tubes.
Best person to share a lineup with.
Probably my dad, because he won't catch any waves.
Worst person to share a lineup with.
I'm going to throw Callum Robson under the bus.
He is someone who catches a lot of waves.
He's a wave magnet. He's always on the nose.
Good surfer. He is a wave out. I mean, unfortunately, the last time I saw him was in Garagegon, and I'm pretty sure he would catch multiple waves in every set. I was really impressed. Okay, last one. Finish this sentence. I will next achieve a state of happiness by...
I will next achieve a state of happiness by tomorrow morning.
I love it. Matty McGillivray, thank you so much for coming on the lineup. Thank you for coming on, hours away from what could be an epic day at Jeffreys Bay. It's been awesome to watch your career so far. Look forward to seeing what you do in South Africa, Tahiti. And yeah, man, we'd love to have you back. Maybe in California around the finals, we'll lure you back on the podcast.
Thanks so much, Dave. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I'd love to chat again soon.